Yesterday we read explanation about the Varnashram principles and the 4 ashrams and the 4 varnas. We read through this carefully, and we were acknowledging this Daivi Varnashram system, yet it is external. It's not the internal quest that Mahaprabhu wants to hear. So he says, Eho Baya, Age Kahe Ara. Go further, go further. This is external. Sriman Mahaprabhu said, what you have just said is external. Please tell me something more than this. Sri Ramananda Rai replied, to completely offer the results of one's activities to Sri Krishna is the essence of all perfection. So all these are the essence of all perfection, yet the essence of the essence of the essence is what we're coming to. So they're all superlatives along the path, but they're not the supreme superlative that we're anxious to taste. So now, my Gurudev is giving a commentary. So we're on page, what page is this? This is page 37, 38. We're on page 38 of this little book here.
39.
Huh?
39.
Oh, sorry. 39, yes, 37, 38, 39. 39, page 39. By declaring this as external, Sriman Mahaprabhu intended to convey that yes, by following the system of Varnashram Dharma, Sri Vishnu is pleased, but only partially so. Varnashram is not directly related to the constitutional nature of the jiva as a servant of Sri Krishna, nor is it devotional practice composed entirely of the 9 limbs of bhakti performed for the pleasure of the Lord. Swarup Siddha Bhakti. So understand these fine tunings that we're going to be highlighting as we scroll through this whole Sangvad. So the Lord is not going to be, it's not the highest service. Uttam Bhakti, or topmost devotional service, is that bhakti which sets the pleasure of Sri Krishna as the goal, and in which the 9 processes of devotional service, especially hearing and chanting, are executed. By the mercy of Bhagavan, that Uttam Bhakti thus attains oneness or qualitative equality, taratmya, with the special function of Bhagavan's internal potency. This understanding of Achintya Bheda Abheda Tattva, we are one, yet simultaneously different from the Lord. We are Bibinamsa Tattva, we have a particle of that internal Shakti within us. And through the Sangvit Shakti, the knowledge potency, that Hladini Shakti can be connected by the conditioned soul. So it's saying here, qualitative equality, tadatmya, with the special function of Bhagavan's internal potency, that's his Swarup Shakti. So yes, we will connect with that Swarup Shakti in service to the Supreme. That Swarup Shakti is only engaging in service to the Supreme. So we are these particles, and we also can attain that connecting internal service to the Lord. Even when the sadhak finally attains perfection and achieves service to Bhagavan in his eternal pastimes in the spiritual realm, the activities of hearing and chanting do not subside. Rather, they become even more supremely relishable and keenly desirable. The greed, the lobe is there. This taste and desire are in both the devotee and Bhagavan. We have this verse, Kleshagni Shubhada Moksha Lakuta Krit Sadulabha Sandra Ananda Visheshatma Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. This Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. Krishna is attracted to that bhakta who has developed his prem. Krishna is running, eager to hear and be with that bhakta. So they both realize ecstasy. This taste and desire are in both the devotee and Bhagavan. This Krishna Akashani Chasa. Indeed, they both realize ecstasy. Krishna realizes ecstasy. To the liberated souls, this ecstasy is highly desirable, as it is their most treasured object and their ultimate goal. Here the term karma refers to the activities mentioned in Smriti and other scriptures that are performed on the basis of the natural inclination of the present body. The pursuance of Varnashram Dharma is sakam karma, performing acts in accordance with scriptural injunctions to fulfill one's own material desires. It's not Shuddha Bhakti, but it's on the path of Bhakti. Offering the fruits of one's activities to Bhagavan is therefore superior to this. So yes, offering Nishkarma Karma Yoga, offering the fruits of our work to Bhagavan is superior to Varnashram. It is stated in the Srimad Bhagavad Gita 3.9. Yagna Tat? Oh.
Yajna karma nunyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartam karma kaunteya mukta sangha samachara.
O son of Kunti, apart from offering the fruits of one's selfless activities, Nishkaram Karma, to Sri Vishnu, other forms of karma are simply a cause of bondage. Therefore, remaining free from the desire to enjoy the fruits of your labor, you should perform all activities with Sri Vishnu as the goal. Bhaktaram Yagita Pasham Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. Krishna is that supreme objective of all sacrifices, of all work. Whatever karma is performed for the pleasure of Sri Hari is called yagya, sacrifice. Any other activity is the cause of bondage in this world. Srimad Bhagavad Gita further states,
Karmajam buddhi yuktahi phalam tyaktva manishinaha janma bandha vinirmuktaha padam gacchantanamayam.
sages who perform buddhi yoga, devotional service endowed with knowledge of Sri Krishna, renounce the fruits of action in the material world. They become liberated from the cycle of birth and death and attain that state beyond all miseries. There's a beautiful verse in the 11th canto, Bhayam, Dvitiyabhini Vyeshitam Syat Isatupatasya Viparya Yoshmiti. This is saying that material fear, Bhayam, fear arises from total absorption in the material world. This is where fear manifests. So one who is liberated from that fear is fully engaged in offering his services completely to Krishna. They become liberated from the cycle of birth and death and attain a state beyond all miseries. Saying the same thing. Shastra repeats itself constantly because we need to make these deep impressions, these sanskars. So at the time of leaving this body, these sanskars will rise. And with the rising of those sanskars, we can attain a higher destination from our present condition. Performing karma while free from attachment completely eradicates the fear of all bondage. This is the verse I've just said, Bhayam dvitiyabhini veshitam syat. This fear is arising from material attachment. Srimad Bhagavad Gita discusses this topic in the section on Karma Yoga. Sri Krishna himself says,
Subha Shubha Falairevam Moksha se Karma Bandhanaihi Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukto Mam Upaisyasi.
This is from Bhagavad Gita 9:28. O Arjuna, in this way you will be freed from all bondage caused by the fruit of good and evil deeds, and by the yoga of renouncing the fruits of action. You will be a unique soul amongst liberated persons, and you will come to me. The person who is able to embrace this teaching will become such a unique soul, such a special personality. He's climbing over all these impediments to attain pure service to Sri Krishna. Our Gaudiya Goswamis have stated unequivocally that we should never offer any sinful activity or low-class activity to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. One should perform bhakti by offering one's very self and abandon the mentality of being the enjoyer and the doer. As the next verse says,
Shravanam Kirtanam Dhyanam Padasevanam Archanam Vandanam Swarpanam Sakyam Sarvam Dasye Pratishtitam.
This is from the Hari Bhakti Kalpa Latika 10.3. The devotional process of hearing about the Lord, glorifying Him, remembering Him, serving His lotus feet, worshipping Him, offering obeisances to Him, surrendering everything to Him, and befriending Him, all rest on service to Him. Seva is the symptom of love, we have said so many times. This service, it's the symptom of love. We see it in the reality in our lives. We serve our family members, we serve the nation, we serve the government out of some type of affection or fear. We serve the various animals in our lives, dogs and cats, etc. This is sometimes demonstrating our affection. It's described that the sun performs his perpetual orbit out of fear of the Supreme Lord. This fear is like an Aishwarya approach to service. Like fear of the government, we serve the government out of fear, etc. This verse describes Dasya Bhav, in which the devotee feels, I am a servant of the Lord. When one becomes a servant, nothing remains his own. Not his body, his intelligence, his senses, his speech, his heart, his religion, his desires, his wealth, or his actions. One cannot even say, I am performing austerities, or I am performing bhakti, because the consciousness that I am the doer also disappears. The first stage of bhakti is Atma Samarpana, or self-surrender. We see in the description of Nishkaram Karma, which we are going to describe more in a moment, but if you have, just to get the picture clear, if you have two people coming into a temple and there's a donation box in front of the takoji, and one person is a Nishkam Karma yogi, and he gives $100 in the donation box, and the bhakta, he also gives $100 donation in the box. So what is the distinction between these two acts of giving? There's a huge a huge difference. The Nishkaram Karma yogi is thinking, this is my $100 and I am giving my $100 to Krishna. Whereas the bhakta, the Shuddha bhakta, he is thinking this already belongs to Krishna. I am just returning his property to him in this donation box, whatever. So you see from this example a clear understanding of the distinction between Nishkam and Shuddha bhakti. So holding that example in mind, it should make it more simple to appreciate the rest of the descriptions here about Nishkaram Karma Yoga. When we feel that all our desires have been fulfilled by worshipping Sri Vishnu, we may conclude that Bhagavan Vishnu is pleased with us. But really, this is not the case at all. Therefore, Mahaprabhu considered offering the fruits of one's action to be an external conception. You are feeling satisfied by offering these fruits. Does it mean that Krishna is satisfied? Does Krishna need anything? Krishna is Atmaram Aptakam. He's totally self-satisfied. He needs nothing. So who are we offering this for the pleasure of? We're offering it out of a mood of what's called self-righteousness. I'm doing it's actually for my benefit. Nevertheless, it's very, very purifying. And it's a step on the path. So this whole Ramananda Roy Sangbad is going to be describing these different steps to the ultimate conclusion of Shuddha Bhakti and Braja Prem and service to the Sakis in Vrindavan. Therefore, Mahaprabhu considered offering the fruits of one's actions to be an external conception, because this method of worship is not inherently pleasing to Bhagavan. It's not pleasing to Bhagavan. He is only superficially pleased with the devotee for the sake of that devotee's happiness. It's like the ultimate conclusion of the Bhagavad Gita. Sarvadhamam parityaja mamekam sharanam braja aham tam save papabhyo mokshaishyami masu. This is and this is ultimately surrender. But this is not pure bhakti. This is the threshold, the doorway into bhakti, because it's about me and my surrender. It's not acknowledging the object of surrender and what will please him. So this is clearly stated here. For the sake of the devotee's happiness, Krishna will accept that. Such a worshipper considers the earth, the heavenly planets, and other such places to be related to him. This conception has no connection whatsoever with Swarup Siddha Bhakti, or the 9 limbs of devotional service performed to achieve one's perfect spiritual body. We're taking it to the highest consideration every time. Some who follow Varnashram Dharma consider their austerities to be their own. Some consider their mother to be their own, some their father, and some consider everything they have to be their own property, their personal property. For example, once there was a Brahmana who sat beneath a tree performing austerities. A pigeon, perching on the upper branches, passed a stool on him, which broke the Brahmana's meditation. He became so angry that by his glance he burnt the pigeon to ashes. By this he believed that his austerity had achieved perfection. So impressed was he that he became very haughty, proud, and was not slightly concerned about pleasing Bhagavan. Understand the subtleties of all this. This applies to every single action in the 24 hours of the day that we perform. We're in process. And it's not just a few minutes of the day that I'm considering these things while I'm hearing them and reading them, etc., but how to activate them in my complete existence in this birth, how to put it into action, how to realize these truths. Bhagavan fulfills the desires of such a devotee, yet remains unattached to him. We want Krishna to become attached. Sri Krishna Akashani Chasa. I just said this expression. Krishna becomes attached to that Premi Bhakta. A sadhak who, by the special grace of Sri Krishna, performs Uttam Bhakti, or activities exclusively for the pleasure of Sri Krishna, desires nothing, nor is there anything more that Sri Krishna possesses that is worthy to be given to him. I was remembering Sudama Brahmana when I read this. Sudama Brahmana goes to visit Dwarkadish, his dear school friend in Dwarka, and he is sent there by his wife. His wife is feeling the pinches of poverty, but Sudama is not. Sudama is on a transcendental level and just appreciating the company of Sri Krishna. He doesn't ask him for anything. Krishna reciprocates because he's in the core of the heart, but still Sudama is not desiring that. His wife was desiring that. Thus, he sells himself to such a sadhak. The sadhan of following Varnashram pleases Sri Krishna only fractionally. For this reason, it is called external. Devotees have to really deeply understand these conceptions, because whenever we're describing any parts of the philosophy, these principal steps need to be solid in our presentations. Srila Saraswati Prabhupada says that the bodily achievements of those who follow Varnashram Dham is based on the false egoism arising from the bodily conceptions of I and mine, and are thus confined to this universe. Bhakti, on the other hand, is beyond the material universe. We're not concerned with the nature we've just spoken about, even thinking your mother or your father is your own. Own what? Own material, temporary form of worshipable relative? It's all transitory. So we have to come to the highest stages of consciousness. Bhagavan Sri Gaurahari regards the external realization of those persons residing outside Vaikuntha or Goloka Dham as fit to be rejected. And he does not accord any special independent recognition to the worship of Vishnu by the Varnashram method. Gyanis direct their worship towards the formless aspect of Bhagavan, Nirvishesh, and Kamis, reward-seeking workers, revere his variegated forms, Savivesh. Both worship Sri Vishnu for some material intent. It's going deep. According to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, to offer the results of one's action to Bhagavan Sri Krishna is the very essence of perfection when compared to the ordinary Varnashram system. So it's higher. We're going through stages. We've come to the next step of Nishkaram Kamaya. We've come from Varnashram. Nirvishesh Tattvavadis actually remain absorbed in karma, which is full of variety, or savivesh. Even though it appears that they are engaging in bhakti, factually it is not so at all. Everything they offer is related to the body. Such offerings bear no relation to the soul, and so Mahaprabhu calls the offering itself external. It's on the bodily platform. Undertakings such as constructing hospitals and dharmshalas, guest houses for pilgrims, and digging wells may be offered to Sri Krishna, but they are external and are thus an obstruction to the soul's relationship with Bhagavan, because there's some aspect of sakam karma. I want something. Sa, the prefix means with. It means I want something for my own satisfaction. Nish is the opposite. Nish, without any desire. So even the Tattvavadis, they have some desire by performing these pious activities. Consequently, one's devotional service is blemished with undesirable habits. Sri Raghunath Das Goswami has said,
yes. Na dharmam shruti gana niruktam kilakuru vraja radha krishna prachur parischaryam iha tanu.
Sri Manashiksha 2. O my dear mind, please do not perform either the dharma or adharma, religion or irreligion, prescribed in the Shrutis. Rather, you should perform profuse, loving service to the divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna. The Shrutis have ascertained them to be the highest principle of worship and the supreme absolute truth. We've just finished our study of Jaivadhamma, and we were reading the false Shruti daily, every single day. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's first 5-6 verses that he's saying is, we are not following this dharma, artha, karma, moksha path. This is to be rejected again and again and again. We've understood this is karma yoga. This is the yoga that Mahaprabhu is rejecting here, even though these principles are in the world as being the stepping stones to coming to the purer conceptions in the heart. We can't just suddenly come to this detached state of consciousness. It has to be a gradual evolution of the consciousness. This evolution is our sadhan bhajan.
860. Yat karosi yat adnasi yat juhosi dadasi yat tapasyasi kaunteya tat kurushva madharpanam.
This is Srimad Bhagavad Gita 9:27. Sri Krishna says to Arjun, O son of Kunti, whatever activities you perform, whatever you eat, whatever you sacrifice and give in charity, and whatever austerities you perform should be done as an offering to me. All endeavors should be to please me alone. The term Mad Arpanam speaks here of the independent Savishesh Tattva, the absolute truth, possessed of all transcendental attributes, without a touch of the material. Its use refutes the notion that the Supreme is Nirvishesh, devoid of form and other characteristics. This Nishkaram Karma process in which one performs one's prescribed duties and offers the results to Bhagavan with no desire to enjoy the fruits, is also known as Gyan Mishra Bhakti, devotion mixed with the desire for liberation. Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur comments that in this verse, Bhagavan suggests the practice of offering everything to the Lord, Bhagavad Arpita Bhakti, for those who denounce devotion performed with personal interest, Sakam Bhakti. So I just explained that. Of course, the principal Sakam Bhakta that we read here about in the Bhagavatam is Dhruva Maharaj. He went to the forest, he had the intention of getting a kingdom greater than his great-grandfather, greater than Lord Brahma. And he achieved that destiny, even though when he saw Krishna, of course, all his desires left him. But nevertheless, that was his intention. And this is the example of the Sakam Karma Bhakta. Yet, who are unable to abandon karma and gyan completely and do not have the qualification to perform one-pointed devotion, Ananya Bhakti. This practice can hardly be called Shuddha Nishkarma Karma Yoga, as this name is awarded only to action that is performed according to the injunctions of the scriptures as an offering to Bhagavan. You're offering it to the person, Bhagavan. A person's ordinary eating and drinking habits may not be included in this. Now, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, in this little search for the ultimate life, he gives a beautiful, very simple commentary on this topic that we're talking about. He says to give and take means person giving and another person receiving. So if I'm performing austerities, who am I giving them to? What is the objective? This distinct feature of dealings between the living entity and the personality of Godhead is a more clear conception of the absolute truth than that which is found in Varnashram Dharma. So that's what we've just discussed in the previous verse. This Varnashram has been rejected. So Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada is very nicely saying that to give and receive by two people is the dynamic of love. Those unable to understand the process of exclusive Ananya Bhajan are instructed to offer all of their activities, like eating and drinking, to Bhagavan. In much the same way, the worship of the universal form of Bhagavan is recommended for those unable to properly conceive of the established truths regarding the actual object of worship, namely Sri Krishna. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, for example, we have this universal form is described by Shukadeva Goswami 5 times. 3 times in Canto 2 and twice in the 3rd canto. Why? Why is he saying that repeatedly? To give us confidence in the objective of the personality, to show us first of all the form of the Lord, that he's a reality, to take faith. So it's a step, it's a stage. We are, as bhaktas, understanding that the universal form is not our meditation at all, but we are appreciating why Shukadeva Goswami is saying that. He's saying that to introduce us to the conception of a personality, to see that personality in nature, etc. So again, it's a stepping stone. Like these are all stepping stones we're discussing. Thus, the performer of the activity is still the recipient of the fruit of action, which is indicated by the Atma Pada form of the verb kurusva, meaning to perform. Furthermore, the verse makes no mention that this practice relates directly to Bhagavan. This is the point. It's not directing the purpose is not.
There are 2 forms of verb in Sanskrit. One is called Atmanepada, the other is called Parasmaipada. So Atmanepada means doing it for oneself.
Yes.
And Parasmaipada means doing it for somebody else. So here, this particular term, Kurushva, means doing it for oneself. Atmanepada.
Very good. I hope everyone heard that. Very beautiful explanation. Doing it for... This is like we were saying earlier about the stage of Sharanagat. This is still for oneself. I am surrendering. I haven't tuned in to what are Krishna's desires exclusively. When I do that, I'm not even thinking about myself. I'm just thinking about Krishna and his beauty and his form and pleasing him. This love is not in this world. So it's a process to, first of all, appreciate that state of consciousness and then aspire for it. It's 2 stages. The practice of the 9-fold process of devotional service, known as Navada Bhakti, begins when the sadhak completely surrenders himself to Bhagavan Sri Krishna. So the point that my friend Bilbamangala Prabhu was just elucidating us with this, Atmapada means for oneself, and Kurusva means performing this activity for oneself. So these are important terms that we can become familiar with. But here, by contrast, the activity is performed first and then offered to Bhagavan. It's like a rope siddha bhakti. I like to paint pictures, so I'll paint for Krishna as a second thought. I like to garden, grow flowers, etc. So as a secondary thought, I'll offer them to Krishna. This is called a rope siddha bhakti. It's counted as bhakti because the object has been served, but it's not full heart serving. So we're training ourselves in the heart region. The acharyas are so merciful to us. They've given this path, very clear path, how to enter into the heart regions and give fully to Sri Bhagavan, as we see the gopis. The example fundamentally is the gopis. For this reason, the type of devotion being discussed is not to be equated with Bhakti Yoga. Indeed, it is not even considered one of the limbs of Bhakti Yoga. So this is the conclusion of this commentary on the Nishkarma Karma Yoga. So it's very clear. Even though these stages have great significance when we are on the lower rungs and aspiring for this simple stage, it's a very high stage, Nishkarma Karma Yoga, to give everything to Krishna. But still there is more. This is the beauty of this remarkable conversation where it's going to take us to. So even higher than giving everything to Krishna. So we'll come to the next consideration now. This is actually Sharanagat. This is the verse describing Sharanagati now. So renouncing occupational duties. 861.
Prabhu kahe eho bahya age kaha aar, Rai kahe swadharma tyag ye sadhya sar.
Mahaprabhu said, this is also external. Speak further on this matter. Sri Ramananda Rai replied, to give up one's swadharma or occupational duties in the varnashram system is the essence of perfection. So this same conclusion of Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharma Parityaja, it's the same principle. So now this is going to be unpacked, opened out. Swadharma Tyag, abandoning varnashram dharma. There are 2 types of swadharma. To practice varnashram dharma with the desire to enjoy the fruits of one's activities and to offer one's work and its results to Sri Krishna without desiring to taste the fruits. But still both these considerations have been rejected. Srimad Mahaprabhu declared both of these to be external, whereupon Sri Ramananda Rai explained the topic of Swadharma Tyag, or the complete abandonment of one's occupational duty. I'm scrolling through at a reasonable pace. I hope everyone's able to comfortably keep up. is really the topics of Bhagavad Gita, which are sublime, but we're just trying to keep with our subject matter and come to the conclusion here. The sequence so far has been as follows. It was first suggested that Varnashram Dharma was the perfect goal, yet Sriman Mahaprabhu designated it as external because by this process one cannot attain Prema Bhakti. You can sit in the Varnashram world forever, basically. It doesn't necessarily, unless you meet a Bhavuka, Rasik, Tattvavid, Vaishnava, who can pull you to a higher stage. What to speak of mounting the staircase of Prem? Next, offering the fruits of one's activities, or karma arpana, was presented as the ultimate goal. But Sriman Mahaprabhu also determined that as external, based on the prior statement, Bhaktiya sanjatiye bhaktya. Bhakti only comes from bhakti. This is described beautifully in the first chapter of Madhurya Kadambini, that bhakti only comes from bhakti. It doesn't come from pious activities. It doesn't come from any type of karma whatsoever. It only comes from service to the bhakta, ultimately. It's the mercy of Guru. Srimad Bhagavatam 11.3.31. The commentator on Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Sridhar Swami, writes of this verse, Bhaktya Satan Bhaktya Sanjatya Prema Lakshanaya. Prema Bhakti only arises from sadhan bhakti, not from pious activities, etc. Good deeds in the world. This is not the root. Bhakti doesn't have its root in this world. It has its root in the transcendental world. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that for those who are incapable of entering into bhajan, verses such as Yat Koroshi have been spoken. This is what we've said. It's a step, it's a stage, and it's a very powerful stage. By properly performing one's role in the Varnashram system, the mind is gradually purified. By not following one's prescribed duties, one incurs a fault. Therefore, it is best to execute one's prescribed duties. However, he who abandons this process in order to perform bhakti is the topmost sadhu, just like the gopis. They broke all maryad, all dharma. They broke, ultimately. This is the highest stage, to serve their beloved in a parakiya mood, not swakiya or anything like that. They broke everything. Therefore, it is best to execute one's prescribed duties. However, he who abandons this process in order to perform bhakti is the topmost sadhu. Bhagavan Shri Krishna says,
Tavat karmani kurvita na nirvedyeta yavata matkata shravana dauva shraddha yavan na jayate.
Srimad Bhagavatam 11.29. As long as a feeling of detachment from this world of work and its concomitant fruits, culminating in the happiness of the heavenly planets, has not arisen, or in other words, as long as faith in hearing and chanting narrations of my pastimes has not awoken, the many rules and regulations in regard to the performance of karma must be followed. Otherwise, we are an asura. If we don't follow this, if we follow, we are suras, we are on the path. But if we don't follow, we are asuras. And most in the world today of Kali Yuga are not following. So all around us, the atmosphere is adharmic, completely. Nevertheless, the devotee, even if he's conditioned and by that adharmic atmosphere, he still can be purified. We've already read this yesterday. He can be purified sufficiently to come to this path of Shuddha Bhakti. If one is indifferent to hearing narrations about Sri Krishna, abandons his swadharma before a taste in hearing has arisen, he will fall into a degraded condition. Such a person surrenders to Bhagavan because he fears the result of his good and bad karma, not because he has prema for the Lord. So out of fear, this is Vaidhi-marg. Srimad Mahaprabhu thus labeled abandoning the Varnashram Dharma as external. Bhagavan Shri Krishna has clearly said,
Yadrichaya mat kadado jata shraddha tu yapuman na nirvinno nati shakto bhakti yogosya siddhidaha.
Srimad Bhagavatam 11:28. By virtue of spiritual merit attained in their previous births, those who are neither repelled nor overly attached materially, and in whom faith in discussions of my pastimes has awakened, are eligible to take to bhakti. Bhakti Devi then confers perfection upon them. This is an avaroha panta. This path is descending. So Bhakti Devi herself will confer perfection upon them. All these scriptural indications are very pleasing to the heart because it's the absolute reality. In this world of fake, everything is fake news, etc., etc., and the condition of the planet, etc. So when the ears are hearing pure Shastra, when they're hearing the pure Siddhanta, it's very, very pleasing to the heart. Whether we understand the truths or not, eventually we will understand the truths. It's simply having an open-hearted appreciation for this topic. The execution of Swadharma has been termed external because by following Varnashram Dharma, one will act according to his material nature. His material nature, not his spiritual nature. Sri Rupa Goswami has said in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu,
Shastra shruyate bhakto nr matrasyadikarita.
it is every person's birthright to accept devotional service. That's what we're just saying. Even if we're in an adharmic atmosphere and we're contaminated by that asuric bhav, still we can be, it is our birthright to perform devotional service. This is substantiated in many scriptures. Even that person who does not follow Varnashram Dharma has the qualification to worship Vishnu. The partial quote from this verse is an unequivocal statement to that effect. So these are wonderful, strong, powerful statements.
862. Ajnayevam gunan doshan maya dishtan api swakan dharman samtyajya yassarvan mam bhajet sacha sattamaha.
O Uddhava, my instructions concerning the occupational duties are described in the scriptures. One who deliberates on their merits and limitations and then gives up Varnashram to perform bhajan of me is the best of perfected persons. The word Shastra in this connection refers to the Vedas and other scriptures which profound mundane moral virtues and give instruction how to progress in life. The word Agnaya, knowing completely or properly, is split into two parts, A, meaning completely or properly, and Naya, meaning knowing or understanding. After fully comprehending the inherent limitations and assets of one's prescribed religious duties, one should reject them. Once we know the depth of them, then they can be rejected. There are three obstacles encountered in the performance of Shuddha Bhakti. 1. Dehatma Buddhi, to consider the material body to be the self. 2. Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan, to cultivate knowledge that promotes the idea of oneness between the Jiva and Brahman. 3. Bhagavat Tattva Gyan, or Aishwarya Gyan, to cultivate knowledge concerning the opulence of Bhagavan. Very beautifully illuminated here. In addition, there are three kinds of people who abandon the path of karma. Agnya, 1. Agnya, ignorant, who depart from the prescriptions of nitya, daily, obligatory, and Naimittika occasional duties mentioned in the Vedas. Naishtika, the atheists who know about karma are presented in the Vedas but have no faith in it. 3. Sarva Pratiyagi, those whose renunciation is complete or who are aware that karma is not a limb of Shuddha Bhakti. They have unflinching faith that through the performance of Bhakti to Sri Krishna, all karma prescribed duties automatically becomes complete, meaning they have no other duties to perform. This is the Ekantika Bhakti, absolutely, explicitly one-pointed. Persons in this third category are therefore considered to be superior, and Bhagavan refers to them in this verse. In Srimad Bhagavatam, when Bhagavan speaks of the glories of the association of sadhus, he is referring to sadhus such as these only. For example,
Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hritkarna rasayana katha tad doshanadas apavarga vartmani shraddha ratir bhaktir anukramishyati.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:25-25. This is in the Rai Ramananda Samvad spoken by Kapila Dev. Not the Rai Ramananda, I'm Devahuti Kapila Dev Samvad. In the assembly of pure devotees, powerful discussions illuminating my heroic deeds become a rejuvenating tonic for both the ears and the heart. By hearing these narrations, one quickly advances on the path of emancipation from ignorance. First he develops Shraddha in me, then Rati, and finally he experiences the awakening of Prema Bhakti. My Gurudev would quote this verse regularly, he loved it. As Kapila speaks to Devahuti. He automatically attains eligibility to receive all good qualities such as mercifulness, as stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Madhya Lila 22:75. Krishna Bhakti Krishnera Guna Shakala Sanchari. All the good qualities of Krishna gradually develop in Krishna's devotee.
863 Sarva dharman parityagya mamekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshayishyami ma chuchaha.
So this is more or less capsulating this whole chapter, which is on Sharanagati. This is the principal verse of Sharanagati that we said at the beginning. O Arjuna, abandon all varieties of dharma, such as varnashram, and just surrender completely unto me. I shall deliver you from all sinful reaction. Do not lament. But we've already explained this is not pure bhakti. In Manashiksha, Sri Manashiksha 2, Sri Raghunath Das Goswami states,
Na dharmam shruti gana niruktam kila kuru vraja radha krishna prachur parischaryam ihatanu.
do not perform either the dharma, pious deeds, or adharma, irreligious or impious deeds, mentioned in the Vedas. Rather, you should perform profuse loving service to the divine couple, Sri Radha and Krishna. In his commentary to this verse, Sri Saraswati Thakur presents as an example the following verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-46.
Yada yam anugruhnati bhagavan atma bhavitaha sajahati matim loke vede cha parinishtitam.
Bhagavan bestows his mercy upon a jiva who meditates on him constantly. The jiva then becomes free from the root cause of bondage, that is, attachment to all social customs and religious rituals prescribed in the Vedas. This is what this verse is saying. Give up all dharmas. The word dharma here is taken to mean all bodily and mental occupations, dharmas, such as adherence to the spiritual orders and social positions. Sannyas, brahmachari, vanaprast, grihasta. We are none of these. What's that? Naham vipro na cha narapiti vaishnava shudra. Mahaprabhu has said this verse. I am not a Brahman, I'm not a Vaishya, I'm not a Shudra. Gopi Bharatu Kamalayo Das Dasanu Das. This is the real identity of the Jivatma. The use of the prefix pari in the word parinishtitam attached carries a special meaning, indicating that these devotees constitutionally reject all forms of fruitive activities. The soul itself has no attraction to all these dharmas. The sadhak quits his brahmanishta, firm faith in impersonal Brahman, and ishwaranishta, firm faith in the supreme controller of the material world, Lord Vishnu, and attains Bhagavan Nishta, or firm faith in Bhagavan. So these are gradations that we're scrolling through. And the principal teaching, I think, today is to realize what is the nature of the soul, the soul's connection with Krishna. Unless the verse or the description by Ramananda Rai is pertaining to the soul's connection with Krishna, Mahaprabhu is going to reject it as external. So this Sarva Dharma Parityaja is concerned with me and my surrender. I, me and mine am still strongly there. So this is not Shuddha Bhakti. Actually, it's not even Bhakti, because it's not concerned with Krishna's happiness, satisfying Krishna. It's concerned with me surrendering to Krishna. It's me first, and then it's Krishna. So it's a process. So we should come to this higher stage of beyond the Bhagavad Gita teaching, even though the Bhagavad Gita teachings are sublime and so essentially necessary, as my Gurudev has been commenting all the way through. There are absolute nuggets of Shuddha Bhakti within these teachings that we should cherish and hold. So we have to go through these stages to be complete. I was just thinking that without this strong, solid foundation, how is Ramananda Rai and Mahaprabhu going to place these teachings that he's going to give in the final conclusion of our surrender to the Sakhis? The Sakhis are the one breaking all Maryad, breaking all dharmic principles, breaking all the rules of Shastra. They're running to be with someone other than their husband in the forest late at night, young girls. This is completely opposed to material dharma. And yet this is the highest example that all the devas, the devas' wives, for example, are honoring this parakya. So how to put this parakya in the highest esteem? It must be grounded fully on the solid foundation of Shastra, which is what Mahaprabhu is milking from Ramananda Rai. So tomorrow we'll come to Bhakti mixed with empiric knowledge. This is Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and continue our walking through to this higher stage. So Sriman Ramananda Rai Sangwad Ki Jai. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So coming to our subject matter of Gyan Mishra Bhakti. So we've reached the third proposition. We've gone through Varnashram, gone through Nishkam Karma Yoga, and we've gone through Sharnagat. So now we've come to the ultimate reality or ultimate truth is now going to be described as Bhakti, that is mixed with Gyan. We understand that Bhakti, Gyan, is like a limb of Bhakti, just like karma is a limb of Bhakti, but it's not in itself Shuddha Bhakti, so it'll be described. So we'll start off Bhakti. We're on page 51 in this book. Yeah. So 864.
Okay, 864. Prabhu kahe eho bhagya age kaha aar Rai kahe jnana mishra bhakti sadhya sar.
Upon Sriman Mahaprabhu saying that renouncing one's swadham or occupational duties is external, Ramananda Rai proposed that Gyan Mishra Bhakti, or devotion mixed with empiric speculation is the essence of devotion. So this renouncing one's occupational duties is like the Sarvadhamma Parityaja Mamekam Sharanam Praja. It's like Sharanagat that was being described. So now Gyan Mishra Bhakti. Bhakti mixed with empiric knowledge. Gyan, knowledge, has three divisions. Tat Padartha Gyan, knowledge of the absolute reality, Paratattva, or the Lord, Bhagavat Tattva, that's all one here. Tvam Padartha Gyan, knowledge of the constitutional position of the jiva, which includes knowledge of the relationship between the jiva and Brahman, and Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan, knowledge of the oneness between the jiva and Brahman. So these terms are described clearly in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Bindu, on page 12 and 13. Perhaps you'll remember, if you've read this description of what is Uttam Bhakti in the beginning of the Bindu, and it's describing quite clearly what is Tat Padartha Gyan, what is Tvam Padartha Gyan, and what is Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan. So that's on page 12 and 13 of here. And we'll post after the class a synopsis of this, just to refresh. It'll make it easier for you. So this last limb, mainly Jiva Brahm Aikya, is completely opposed to devotion, because therein knowledge of the constitutional relationship between Brahman as master and the jiva as servant cannot manifest, or rather awaken. It's described that in the Brahman effulgence, in the Brahma Jyoti, if that aspirant for Brahma Gyan is realized, there's no relationship in there. It's Shantaras, but without any type of relationship with the Supreme. It's just the individual relishing the oneness of himself with the effulgence. So it's like a spiritual suicide place. So in that Shantaras, there's no relationship, no sambandha. No master or servant relationship can manifest, or rather awaken, because one is so absorbed in his own bliss. We'll discuss as we go through. The first two limbs of Gyan, namely knowledge of Jiva Tattva and knowledge of Brahma Tattva or Bhagavat Tattva, are not in opposition to Bhakti, because they do not hinder nourishment of a master-servant relationship. So this is very important to appreciate these descriptions of the qualities of Krishna. If ever we're describing to somebody who doesn't know Krishna, we should be familiar with what are the qualities of Krishna. So in the Bindu that I've just described, it's described that there are 6 or 8 qualities of Krishna. So one is Paramatattva. This is that Krishna is above all material qualities. He's Aprakat Tattva. He's Aprakat Guna. He's only has transcendental qualities. If we want to have relationship with Krishna, we should have an understanding of what are his principal qualities. So this is what I'm just going through here briefly. And then Satchit Anandamayi, the Vigraha or embodiment of eternal bliss and knowledge. This is who is Krishna. We should have this appreciation. And then Achintya Sarva Shaktiman, inconceivable possessor of all potencies. This is Krishna again. And Rasaraj, the abode of all ras. And Swayam Bhagavan, the ultimate in all shastras. So these are 6 principal qualities in Krishna that we can appreciate. And this comes collectively under the heading of Tat Padartha. Tat, we say the men say the Brahma Gayatri mantra. Om Bhu Bhuva Swa Tat. Tat means that, all that which is describing the Supreme Lord. Tat. So Tat Padartha, Gyan, This is knowledge of the Supreme Lord, which is what I've just described, and you can find very clearly on those pages 12 and 13 of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. And then Tvam. Tvam means the Jiva himself. So Jiva is Anuchit. Krishna is Vibhuchit. Jiva is controlled by Maya. Krishna is the controller of Maya. These are the essential differences. So we should appreciate it. So this knowledge is good. But the Jiva Brahma Aikya Gyan, knowledge of oneness with the Supreme, is to be rejected. Because this is like spiritual suicide for the Jiva. The meaning of the word Gyan in the current verse might be stretched and thus interpreted in such a way as to suggest that bhakti mixed with these three limbs of Gyan is called Gyan Mishra Bhakti, devotional service to Krishna with a desire to enjoy the fruits of transcendental knowledge. But that would not be correct. Our desire is to please Krishna, not to relish the bliss of liberation. That is not our path. The Shastras are so explicit because they know the rolling mind and the myriad of different desires that can arise on this journey. The Jiva by nature, Ananda Vyasat, wants to be happy and enjoy, and he's hungry to reach that pleasurable place, but unless he's guided clearly to the ultimate conclusion of service to that Supreme, it's the only thing that will give the Jiva that supersedity, yeyatma supersedity, that satisfaction of the soul will only come through service. That means there must be an object and a subject. In Shantaras, there's no subject, or there's no object rather. It is worth considering here that without the help of bhakti, nirvishesh gyan, knowledge of the impersonal Brahman effulgence, on its own is completely incapable of bestowing sayuja mukti, or impersonal liberation. You can't even get impersonal liberation without some type of worship. Thus, in the verse under consideration, the Gyan Mishra Bhakti referred to specifically indicates the third type of Gyan, or Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan, which promulgates knowledge of the non-difference between the individual soul and the Supreme Soul. No difference, just merging as one. But we must be in knowledge of that, and you must have knowledge from Krishna to even get knowledge of that. Therefore, those Gyanis, they worship Krishna for this purpose. In addition, there are even some sadhaks on the path of Bhakti Yoga whose predominant goal is to attain knowledge that does not obstruct Bhakti, such as Bhagavat Tattva Gyan, knowledge of the reality about the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Jiva Tattva Gyan, knowledge about the reality of the minute spiritual living entity, and Sambandha Gyan, the accompanying knowledge of the relationship between both, as well as Maya Tattva Gyan, knowledge about the reality of the illusory energy. For this reason, their practice of the limbs of bhakti also remains mixed with Gyan. They're not exclusively focused on their devotional service to the Lord. Therefore, one might include their practice in the definition of Gyan Mishra Bhakti. That Gyan is going to cloud their ekantika, their one-pointed focus on devotional service. Regardless, the Gyan Mishra Bhakti referred to in this verse by Sri Ramananda only equates to that bhakti which is mixed with Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan. So he's not referencing Shuddha Bhakti. We shall see that this is indicated directly in the next verse, Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma. In their commentaries on this verse, Sri Sankaracharya, Sripad Sridhar Swami, and Sri Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur have all accepted that the Gyan mentioned here is Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan. This is the impersonal goal that has been mentioned here. It's ultimately the impersonal goal, that bhakti mixed with jnana. Although on the path of Shuddha Bhakti, there is a statute allowing one to abandon his swadham, that's Sharanagat. A certain level of qualification to do this is required. An edict to that effect appears in Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay.
At the bottom of the page.
Tavat karmani kurvita nanir vidyeta yavata matkata shravanadau va shraddha yavan na jayate.
That's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 20th chapter, 9th verse. As long as disinterest in karma has not arisen, or until, by the mercy of some Mahapurush, one experiences the awakening of faith in the process of hearing and chanting Bhagavad Gita, one should continue to perform karma. Otherwise, it'll be false. It'll be superimposed on the natural proclivity of the jiva. It is only upon the awakening of extreme thick shraddha by the grace of a pure devotee that one receives the qualification to enter Kevala Bhakti or exclusive devotion, and it is then that one becomes qualified to abandon prescribed duties, swadharma. Unless you actually have the fortune to meet a self-realized soul, you don't quite believe in what we're hearing from the Shastra. It's just like words, so to speak. But if you're blessed with the fortune to come into the presence of a self-realized sadhu, a self-realized soul, then you appreciate the absolute reality of these words. That it's not just words written on a page, but it's a living reality, it's a living truth. And you don't appreciate that living truth until you've come in the presence of a Mahabhagavat. So we must always be hungry for that high-class Vaishnava association. That is what is going to carry us across this Viraja river into the spiritual realm. When an unqualified person renounces prescribed duties, there is fear of an inauspicious occurrence. For this reason, Sriman Mahaprabhu is saying that it is external, because you can fall down from there. If hearing and chanting are not coming from love within the heart, but rather from some mentally conceived sense of duty, then this practice too is external or superficial. This is exactly like the Devas. The Devas, Brihaspati is the spiritual master of the demigods, and he's been described as Brahman realized. That means he's sitting in that realization of the Brahman. That's why the Devas, they can't cross over that Viraja river into the land of Vaikuntha. They can't escape this material covering. Bhakti doesn't flourish there. And they're performing their duties, I said the other day. The sun rides its orbit out of fear. Indra pours the rain out of fear. Fire incinerates out of fear. This is a verse from the 3rd canto describing this. That fear is like a sense of duty. It's not coming from the heart. It's not a spontaneous, loving act. It's an act of duty. So there's some fear involved. So it's not pure. There's some impurity there. Not coming from love within the heart, but rather from some mentally conceived sense of duty. Then this practice too is external or superficial. Sriman Mahaprabhu is looking for an explanation of something superior. Therefore, Sri Ramananda Roy describes Gyan Mishra Bhakti as the sadhya, or state of perfection. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada explains that while in this universe, one who is advancing in his activities along the path of self-realization will still be subject to some ashmita, Ashmita means the false ego or material identification in this world. Unless we're completely out of this world, there's always a twist on things relating to the false ego. That's always there. But when that false ego conception of the self is dispelled, he crosses over the Viraja river, which is beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature. Yes, unless we cross that influence of the I, the egotistical self, that Ashmita, then there's always a consideration for my pleasure. It can't be pure because I'm by nature thinking for my own pleasure. It hasn't been purified sufficiently to understand who is Krishna fully, which is beyond the influence of the three modes of material nature and reaches the neutral samya or unmanifest avyakta state of the three modes. Okay? I hope everyone's able to follow. It's actually remarkably simple. It's simple precepts. Listen carefully. This next sentence is amazing. The material universe manifests from the external energy. This whole material universe, it's coming from the Bahiranga Shakti, the external energy of the Lord. Whereas Vaikuntha-dham, the abode of the Lord, is manifest from the internal potency. Straight from Swarup Shakti, that Chit Shakti, is manifesting the spiritual realms. But these material realms are of the Mayic nature. It began with Maya. Mahavishnu glancing towards Maya Devi, he connected with the material energy. There's some scent or some trace of deficiency there, or his attraction to Maya, because that had to take place to manifest these worlds. So it's described very clearly in the Bhagavatam that there is some trace of Maya, contamination is the word, some trace of contamination within even that first Purush of Mahavishnu, because he's connecting with the material energy. It's not entirely the Chit. In between the two are Brahmaloka and Viraja river. In between the two are Brahmaloka and Viraja river. This river is the place of shelter for those jivas who are detached from dull matter and who deny the material varieties within the material creation. Those who have acquired this unmanifest state may not enter Vaikuntha, but must remain outside. Therefore, it is termed as Bhaya, or external. So the soul cannot be liberated, emancipated from this material clutches just by negating everything in the material worlds. Just as the realization of the sadhaks who have abandoned their prescribed duties within this world does not equate to the realization of Vaikuntha or Golokdham. Just because you negate the this material world and everything in here, you become completely detached. But that doesn't mean that you've made a relationship with Radha and Krishna. It's not by that detachment that is going to connect the loving aspect. The whole ingredient, ultimately, to understand all of this very easily is, where is that loving sentiment? Where is that pure loving sentiment of the servant to serve the master? The servant being the conditioned jiva to serve Sri Krishna as the ultimate reality and the ultimate master. If that loving connection is not there, then it's defective, then it's contaminated. So we're going through all these. Mahaprabhu is so kind as to give us all these details of what is deficient in pure bhakti, because it can look very attractive, and we may think that we're making advancement. Actually, there's one beautiful book by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur called Bhakti Tattva Vivek, and it describes the 4 lines of this verse, Anyabilasita Sunyam, which is the principal verse for describing what is Uttam Bhakti. So this has to be really carefully studied and appreciated. And then this will become very simple to understand. For this reason, it is also external. In fact, only Prem Bhakti qualifies as Parabhakti, transcendental devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Unless one reaches the state of Samya or Avyakta, the neutral state of the three modes, it is actually impossible to attain Prema Bhakti. Unless we become completely detached from this world, we can't attain Prema Bhakti. But you have to have the objective clearly in mind. It's not just about negation. Like, for example, we say it's not anartha nivriti, it's artha pravriti. It's the wealth that we are seeking, not just to consider the defects. You understand? Because a Gyan Mishra Bhakta will always be looking at these negative aspects, so he can't actually come to the positive conclusion. In Gyan Mishra Bhakti, Gyan remains prominent, and thus it is not Bhakti at all. This consideration of the distinction between matter and spirit, constantly going this, rather than connecting in the loving relationship. Rather, it is merely an offense at the lotus feet of Bhagavan. It becomes possible to attain bhakti from the samya or avyakta platform if one somehow gets the association of a pure devotee and of a pure guru and Vaishnavas. If a piece of gold, the size and shape of a mustard seed, a tiny little fleck of gold, is mixed with a huge heap of golden mustard seeds, it is extremely difficult to distinguish it, right? You have a small piece of gold, the size of a mustard seed, mixed in with lots of other mustard seeds that are also colored gold. How will you know which is the real one amongst all the mustard seeds? It is extremely difficult to distinguish it. But once the pile of seeds is set on fire and reduces to ashes, it is easy to find the piece of gold. So once all these other conceptions have been understood and located clearly, then it's easy to find the actual path of Shuddha Bhakti. Therefore, we are going through, by the mercy of Mahaprabhu, all these other propositions that are prominent in the world. The practice of Gyan Mishra Bhakti is never capable of awakening prem. Therefore, this type of Gyan presents an obstruction to Shuddha Bhakti. Srimad Bhagavatam states,
Tasman mad bhakti yuktasya yogino vai madatmanaha na jnanam na cha vairagyam prayashreyo bhavediha.
Thus the yogi who is connected with my bhakti and absorbed in thinking of me need not cultivate jnana or renunciation. His auspiciousness is achieved only through devotion to me. So jnana can be rejected. So now we have the verse that is capsulating this.
865 Brahma bhuta prasannatma na sochati na kankshati sama sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labate param.
Srimad Bhagavad Gita 1854. A person happily absorbed in Brahman neither laments for nor desires anything. Being equipoised in his vision of all living beings, he obtains Parabhakti, transcendental devotional service to me, which is endowed with the symptoms of prem. There is a multitude of mantras in the Vedas establishing the difference between the Jiva and Brahman. Some examples are given here. 1. Pradhan Ketra Gyan Patir Ganeshaha. That Paramatma is the controller of the gunas and master of the living entities. Shvetashvarata Upanishad 3.6.16. 2. Tam Uhur Argyam Purusham Mahantam. Sages declare him to be the foremost and greatest of persons. Shvetashvarata Upanishad 3.3.19. Yata tayato rahan vyadatat. It is he who awards the many jivas necessities. These are all the proofs from Shastra substantiating the jiva and Ishvara. Tenadam puranam purusena sarvam. By that person's arrangement, this universe is complete in every respect. Shastra is packed with expressions of putting the Supreme Lord in the right place for the jiva to honor and worship. Because all of these other processes are not substantiating this. Nityo Nityanam. He is the supreme among all eternal beings. Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Svetashvarata Upanishad 3.6.13. This compilation of sutras directly demonstrates that the jiva can never dissolve and become one with Brahman in any situation. Persons who attain the Brahmabhuta platform are in one of two categories. Now appreciate this. One of two categories. One type, despite reaching this platform, disrespects the names, forms, qualities, and pastimes of Bhagavan as well as his devotees. Such persons continue to endeavor exclusively for Sayuja Mukti. They're on the same Brahmabhuta platform. Self-realized, the Brahmabhuta self-realized persons of this category are offenders. Instead of achieving liberation, this kind of person continues to rotate in the cycle of birth and death, taking birth in demonic species. The other kind of Brahmabhuta souls, being non-offenders, easily achieve the shelter of the devotees and attain para bhakti. So there are two types of personalities that can relate to this verse. So we shouldn't take this verse as the stamp of approval for entering into Brahman realization. It says mad bhaktim at the end, my bhakta. Oh, labdhe param, mad bhaktim labhate param. This my bhakta will achieve this. This is saying this second type, the other kind of Brahmabhuta souls, being non-offenders, easily achieve the shelter of devotees and attain para-bhakti. So now we'll continue and come to the next stage, which is actually accepted by Mahaprabhu. So we've been through 4 stages so far: Vanashram, Nishkarm Karma, Sharanagat, and Gyan Mishra Bhakti. So now we're coming to the 5th stage, Bhakti devoid of empiric knowledge.
866. Prabhu kahe eho bahya age kaha ar raya kahe jnana shunya bhakti sadhya sar.
After hearing this, Srimad Mahaprabhu said, "This is also external. If there is anything more than this, please speak further." Ramananda Rai replied, "Pure devotional service without any touch of speculative knowledge, Gyan Shunya Bhakti, is the topmost perfection." So now we're coming into a whole nother atmosphere. Gyan Shunya Bhakti, devotion free from Gyan. It's not obstructed by this mentality of Gyan. We remember when Bhakti Devi is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam Mahatmya. She comes to Vrindavan with her 2 sons, Gyan and Vairagya. Bhakti Devi is still the resplendent, beautiful, divine young maid, but her 2 sons, Gyan and Vairagya, they become old and decrepit, and practically they can't even stand up, because Gyan and Vairagya doesn't really have a place in Braj. So this Gyan that has just previously been referred to is not supported as Shuddha Bhakti in Braj by this pastime in the Srimad Bhagavat Mahatmya. As mentioned earlier, there are 3 limbs of Gyan: knowledge of Bhagavat Tattva, knowledge of Jiva Gyan, that's Tat Padartha Gyan, knowledge of Jiva Tattva, that's Tvam Padartha Gyan, and knowledge of the oneness between the Jiva and Brahm, Jiva Brahm Aikya Gyan. These three are being referred to here. Now in this verse, there is mention of a variety of bhakti untouched by these three types of Gyan. Gyan Shunya Bhakti is superior to Gyan Mishra Bhakti, primarily in that there is no trace of knowledge of the oneness between the Jiva and Brahman, Jiva Brahmaikya Gyan, which is directly opposed to the cultivation of a master-servant relationship. Without this relationship, without this sambandha, then bhakti cannot flourish. Moreover, this Gyan Shunya Bhakti is not mixed with the excessive insistence to collect knowledge about the nature of Bhagavan, Bhagavat Tattva Gyan, or knowledge about the nature of the living entity, Jiva Tattva Gyan, which generate obstacles in the path of Shuddha Bhakti. It's described as the thorny thickets of Gyan, thorny thickets. It's obstructing the purity. In Gyan Shunya Bhakti, there is a complete manifestation of Sambandha Gyan, or knowledge of one's relationship with Bhagavan. However, in the path of Gyan Mishra Bhakti, the jiva simply becomes a dry speculator, Shuksha Gyani. Upon the awakening of good fortune, by the influence of the association of pure devotees, always it comes down to this sadhu sangha, Sharva Shastre Koi, Labha Matra Sadhu Sangha, Sadhava Siddhi Koi. Always this sadhu sangha must be there, unless the realized soul, who has cut through all of these other considerations, these 5 types of considerations that we walked through, then we cannot move forward. Upon the awakening of good fortune by the influence of the association of pure devotees, one very quickly achieves prema bhakti. In such a position, all obstacles are gradually destroyed. The sadhak goes far beyond having material desires and gradually obtains a proper level of realization of prema bhakti, far beyond material desires. In relation to Gyan Sunya Bhakti, Sri Ramananda Roy quotes evidence from Srimad Bhagavatam. My Gurudev used to chant this verse regularly. It's a very powerful, special verse.
867 Jnane prayasam gopasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukharitam bhavadiya vartam sthane stita srutigatam tanuvan manobhihi ye prayaso jita jitopi asitaihi trilokyam.
This is from Bhagavatam 10, 14, 3. These are the prayers by Lord Brahma after he's stolen or tried to steal the cowherd boys and been chastised. These are his prayers. This 10:14. Sri Brahma is saying to Sri Krishna, the sadhan to obtain an object that is beyond the senses, achintya, beyond the senses, with the help of knowledge obtained by the senses, is called arohavad. It's like the ascending process. I'm using my senses to try to achieve something that is beyond the senses. How is that conceivable? The futile and laborious ascending process, or ashrotapanta, the path devoid of all reception of the Vedic principles. However, those who do not make any endeavor for Gyan, and who instead maintain their lives by exclusively rendering service to the descriptions of your pastimes, flowing from the mouths of sadhus, by body, mind, and words, are able to conquer you, despite their not making any other endeavor, and despite your being unconquerable. Such persons control you by their prem. Now don't become confused by this, thinking, oh, I don't need any knowledge. The mind has intelligence. Unless we fill the mind with these concepts that are being presented, how are we going to be able to purify the mind of these concepts that may come into it? So we should be in knowledge of this. We need knowledge of Krishna. We need knowledge of the soul. This Tat-Padartha Gyan is the knowledge that's referred to in that verse, Anyabilashita Shunyam, Jnana Karmadi Anavritam. Knowledge must be rejected, but not knowledge of who is Krishna. Otherwise, how can I manifest my sambandha, my relationship with Krishna? Not possible. However, those who do not make any endeavor for Gyan and who instead maintain their lives by exclusively rendering service to the descriptions of your pastimes flowing from the mouths of sadhus by body, mind, and words are able to conquer you, despite their not making any other endeavor, and despite your being unconquerable. Such persons control you by their prem. This is the conclusion here. Bhakti Vasa Purushaha. The Supreme Person is controlled by devotion. Mathura Shruti. One may attain Anand or bliss through Gyan Shunya Bhakti, even though relationship with Sri Krishna or a sense of ownership and intimacy. Even though relationship with Sri Krishna or a sense of ownership and intimacy with him is lacking. Just as one feels ecstasy witnessing the moon, even though one has no relationship with it. So hearing about these things can be very inspiring for the devotee and can fill him with some type of pleasure and bliss. But it's not actually connecting him. It's still hovering on the mental platform. It's not entirely, that sambandha hasn't actually manifested. That loving reciprocal relationship hasn't manifested yet. There are two types of Gyan. Tat-Padartha Gyan, that which is related to the Lord, and Tvam-Padartha Gyan, that which is related to the Jiva. Sri Bhagavan is worshipful to all, and the Jiva is his eternal servitor. Yet Nirvishesh Gyan completely opposes this conception. Thus it stands contrary to Bhakti and should be rejected entirely. This alone is the reason that Gyan Shunya Bhakti is accepted as superior to Gyan Mishra Bhakti. By presenting this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Ramananda Roy has made it totally clear that the sadhak is able to achieve everything by only hearing Harikatha from the mouths of unalloyed devotees. My Gurudev is saying this repeatedly. To obtain sambandha, abhideya, and prayojan, knowledge of the relationship, process, and ultimate goal, rests on the basis of this Harikatha, which is both the sadhya goal and the sadhan process. Because Harikatha is just like Vyasadeva in his despondency when Narad manifests for him. Why is he feeling despondent? Because he's giving the process of Gyan Kand or Karma Kand previously. He's not giving the process of Bhakti. He doesn't know that Krishna is the son of Mother Yashoda and Nanda. He doesn't know about Braj. And then Narad, he gifts him in the 7th chapter with a vision of the Vrindavan pastime. Only then can he complete the Bhagavatam. Prior to that, he'd written the first 9 cantos. But the conception of bhakti had been not acute, not precise, only in the 10th canto, when Nanda Baba is there, Yashoda is there, and particularly the gopis are there. This is what Vyasadeva saw in his trance that was gifted by the Mahabhagavat Narad. So without this association, without this connection with the pure devotee, we cannot enter that world of Braj. We cannot leave these material conceptions. So that's an example, a very simple example of the necessity to hear Harikatha. When Sri Krishna went to Mathura, he sent his friend Uddhav to Braj with a tattered garment of Gyan. Uddhav is a Gyani Bhakta. Gyani in this sense means that he sees Krishna always as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's not a Gyani Pandit aiming at Sayuja or anything like that. He's a Gyani Bhakta. He's a Bhakta. It's a big distinction. And with that vision, he sees Krishna always as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he comes to Braj. He's the only one described who comes to Braj with this Aishwarya conception of the Lord, this Gyan conception of the Lord. When Mother Yashoda and Nanda Baba are lamenting, not Mother Yashoda, she can't actually speak when Uddhav comes, but Nanda Baba, he's lamenting, and Uddhav says to him, why are you lamenting? Don't you know that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead? He's not your son? Nanda Baba thinks, who is this person? He doesn't know anything. Really, he's my son. Nanda Baba, his Vatsalya Bhav is never compromised by Uddhav's words, not for a moment. And certainly not Mother Yashoda. So that's the Gyan that Uddhav brings. There's the example of when Uddhav comes to Braj. Krishna gives him a spurti of seeing everything in Braj as if Krishna is present. And everything is joyful. All the gopis are singing. The gopas are singing. The cows are frolicking in the pastures. Everything is absolutely beautiful. Then suddenly Krishna steps out of a doorway and Uddhav immediately offers Dandavat Pranams. That's not what happens in Braj. We don't see Krishna as the personality. We see Krishna as my son. We see Krishna as he's dependent on me. This is Madhurya. So Uddhav, he's come to Braj with this tattered garment of Gyan, it's described. Seeing Krishna as the supreme controller, the supreme personality of Godhead. The gopis took that garment and after tearing it to shreds, threw it straight into the Jamuna river. The Jamuna then carried it to Prayag. In Prayag, yes, there is Gyan. And from there it continued until it reached the ocean. Submerged in the salty water of the ocean, those shreds of Gyan dissolved and lost their very existence. What is that ocean? That ocean is the ocean of, like the Brahman. In the Brahman, it just loses all its conception. That Shantaras is just completely, there's nothing there. It's empty. That's why it's a place of suicide for the soul. Even opulence, Aishwarya, cannot find any right to render service in Braj. Lakshmi Devi, she comes after Krishna's birth and she wants to offer her wealth. And she can find no place to go except the gutters, Jiva Goswami describes. She puts her rubies and diamonds and emeralds in the gutters where all the milk is running from the pastime of throwing the milk and yogurt on each other, on Nandishwara, on Nandotsva, Nanda Baba's appearance day, the day after the appearance of Krishna, day after Janmashtami. Lakshmi Devi wants to enter, but she can't because there's so much actual opulence of Madhurya. But in Madhurya, we know that there's more Aishwarya and opulence than there is in Dwarka, but it's covered with such an immensity of Madhurya that it's submerged. Understand? Understand this picture? It's described by Srila Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur in Raghavatman Chandrika. Even opulence Aishwarya cannot find any right to render service in Braj. What to speak of Nirvishesh Gyan? Nirvishesh Gyan doesn't even have a place, which the gopis did not permit to exist inside Braj, even by name. If opulence desires to perform any service there, it is submitted within Braj's bottomless, fathomless, and limitless oceanic sweetness. Yes, the oceanic sweetness is covering. At the very bottom of that is some Aishwarya mood. Take the example. This is how Aishwarya is in Braj. Take the example of a piece of straw placed in a large pot of boiling milk. So say you have 200 liters of boiling milk and you have a little piece of straw or a piece of grass. That straw remains visible on the surface only for a second before totally disappearing into the milk. That's like the experience of Aishwarya in Braj. Just for a moment it may exist and then it gets submerged by the Madhurya. One will not be able to find it. Straw remains visible on the surface only for a second before totally disappearing into the milk. one will not be able to find it. Aishwarya, likened to the straw in that milk, is concealed by the fathomless ocean of Madhurya in Braj. One has no way of knowing that it is there. To support this, Sri Shukadeva Goswami has said,
Tasmin mahan mukharita madhupischaritra piyusha shesha sharita paritasravanti taye pibant avitriso nrupagada karnaihi tanna sprishanta sanatrit bhayashoka moha.
This is from Srimad Bhagavatam 4:29-40. In the society of sadhus, many rivers of pure nectar in the form of discussions of Sri Krishna flow in all directions from the mouths of the pure devotees present there. Persons who, with their well-like ears, like a dark well, like a well-like ears, drink this nectar without getting full, are not disturbed by hunger, thirst, fear, lamentation, illusion, etc. Just like Parikshit Maharaj was not disturbed slightly by fasting for 7 days, no drinking, etc. The Shruti confirms,
Tameva vidvati mrutyum yeti nanya panta vidyate yanaya.
by knowing that Supreme Person who is the embodiment of knowledge, bliss and eternity, Sat Chit Ananda Swarup, the jiva can cross this ocean of birth and death. Apart from knowing him, there is no other method of liberating oneself from the blazing fire of material existence. So this is like I said before. Don't think when we have been describing the gyan, like thorny thickets, etc. We need to have knowledge of Krishna. Unless we have knowledge of Krishna, how can we begin our relationship with him? It's just the imagination. We must have clear, tattvic knowledge of Krishna. This tat padartha gyan must be there. Apart from knowing him, there is no other method of liberating oneself from the blazing fire of material existence. We must know Krishna. Just by thirstily endeavoring to hear the topics of Sri Krishna, Harikatha, a person is not merely liberated, but he subjugates Sri Bhagavan. If someone tries to obtain gyan alone, then just like a person threshing empty husks of rice, he achieves nothing.
Shreyastrim bhaktim udasyate vibho klishyanti ye kevala bodha labdhaye tesham asau kleshala eva shishyate nanyat yata stula tushavagathinam.
Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-4. Again, this is Lord Brahma. O Lord, devotional service unto you is the main source of all kinds of auspiciousness. Those who give up this path only to cultivate gyan will simply undergo hard labor, pain, and difficulty, just as the only grain of a person who beats empty husk is hard work, not rice. Just as the only gain wasn't making sense here, gain of a person who beats empty husks is hard work, not rice. So again, these thorny thickets of gyan are not encouraged. They just lead to the desire for moksha. Narrations about Bhagavan become supremely attractive and full of rasa when infused with the nectar of Bhagavan's form, pastimes and qualities. Sri Bhagavan himself has said to Sri Durvasa, Aham Bhakta Paradino Yashvatantra Idva Dvija. O Brahmana, the sadhus, my topmost devotees, hold complete possession of my heart. Their love for me is so great that I accept their control. And because their heart is so infused with prema ras, I have no desire to leave it. Srimad Bhagavatam 9:463. After Gyan Shunya Bhakti, the propensity to bring Bhagavan under one's loving control begins to develop. This ability is also a measure of one's bhakti. He can therefore say that this Gyan Shunya Bhakti is the first milestone on the path to attain Prema Bhakti. One controls the Lord in proportion to its progressive development. The primary cause of this wonderful phenomena of being able to control Bhagavan is the variegatedness of the sadhak's tastes, natures, and tendencies. We've said this many times. Every individual person has a different rasa with the Lord. There's no two people in existence that have the same rasa. No two people. When we look at all the individuals perhaps around us, what is similar? All right, we're performing devotional service, but our actual natures are totally different. It's this variegatedness that Krishna wants to taste. This individual rasa of the unique souls that Krishna wants to taste. Each person's bhakti and their practices of the limbs of bhakti are unique. From here begins the description of the performance of devotion that pertains to one's eternal constitutional relationship with Bhagavan. The bhakti that was described before this verse is performed in connection with the body. So very, very beautiful descriptions of Tat Padartha Gyan, Tvam Padartha Gyan, what is Gyan Mishra Bhakti, and what is Gyan Shunya Bhakti. That's what we've just been through. And this final proposition of Gyan Shunya Bhakti is accepted as by Mahaprabhu. But it's not the supreme. Mahaprabhu knows that it is more. And this is still in connection with the body. The last sentence says, the bhakti that was described before this verse, that's before this verse that we're talking about, Brahmabhuta Prasanatma. No, sorry, Gyane Prayasam Udapasya Namanta Eva. Before this verse is performed in connection with the body. That's Varnashram, Nishkarma Karma Yoga, Sharanagat, and Gyan Mishra Bhakti. Those four are in connection with the body. But now Gyan Shunya Bhakti, this Gyan Shunya Bhakti is not in connection with the body. It's focusing on Krishna. But still, we want to go higher. So tomorrow we'll go to the next chapter, which is Prema Bhakti. Now this is when Mahaprabhu is going to start accepting these propositions. But understand, all these divisions that we've walked through are vital to understand and appreciate. We will all go through these stages at different times, in different births, etc. We need to be able to highlight them and clearly say, oh, this is Sharanagati, but it's not Shuddha Bhakti. This is Nishkam Kam, but it's not Shuddha Bhakti. This is Varnashram, which is helpful and supportive, but it's not Shuddha Bhakti. So unless we read these and study this and understand this, how we will be able to reject it, so to speak. This is just like a musician, for example. A musician will learn carefully all the notes, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, etc. But once he starts playing, and once his heart starts soaring with the sound vibration, he's not thinking A, B, C, D anymore. He's not thinking of this knowledge anymore. So this gyan will just be disposed, just dissolve. But we have to go through that stage first. We have to understand the musical arrangements, the notes, etc., to have the grounding. Unless we have that grounding, how can we confidently go forward? We'll look a fool if we don't have this tattva siddhanta in our hands, so to speak. If it's vague, if it's not clear. So these 5 propositions that we've gone through to reach Prema Bhakti. The final proposition is being accepted, Gyan Shunya Bhakti. But it's not complete. It's Bhakti that is not obstructed by Gyan. So all of these very wonderful descriptions are given completely by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So please take all these teachings very, very seriously and understand them all. And I've suggested Bhakti Tattva Vivek is a very, very helpful treatise by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and of course the essay in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu by Srila Vishnu Chakrabarti Thakur and my Gurudev will help us understand these precepts clearly. Then they should not be confusing. And the very thread that I've said all the time is love. Love is two, not one. There has to be a subject and an object. There has to be the server and the served. There has to be Krishna and the Jiva to be a reality. Otherwise, where is service? And service is the symptom of love. So, Sri Ramananda Rai Samvad Ki Jai. Go. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Gaura Hari Bol. Go, Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Panchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavyo, Namo Namo.